Alright, so this year is my first year growing watermelons on a trellis. And I like the idea of growing them up on the trellis because, one, I can go through and pick the squash bugs off that get on there, that come from squash. They get on melons, zucchini, and stuff like that. And what I did this year was I buried 8 4x4 posts 2 feet in the ground. And then I put a really heavy nylon netting on it and a stainless steel cable at the top that I could take the tension out of it and keep it tight. And I zip tied it all together, and it turned out to be too much weight for that type of net. So next year, I know through trial and error, next year I'm going to be using co-panels that I can get from the feed and seed store that are 16 feet long and 6 feet tall, and they're made out of a heavy gauge galvanized steel wire. And I'm going to be putting them up a whole lot different next year. But this is my first year doing it, and I'm learning how to hang them. And I use these nets that I got on Amazon, and they ended up not working out too well. And I had this other netting that I put up there and made a hammock, which worked a little bit better, and I secured them with this string. But next year I'm using cloth hammocks, or maybe cheesecloth. So this is what it looks like. I'm growing crimson watermelons. The watermelons are coming out really nice. It's a lot of them. And I got them, they're growing all down on the ground. As you can see, got watermelons growing on the ground, on the sides, and hanging from the tops. And it got to be too much weight on the inside, and I ended up having to make these dead men with 12-foot 2x4s across the top. But what's neat about growing them on a trellis is that they don't have that yellow spot on them, and they're the same color all over. These watermelons that I'm growing are 100% organic. You see I got them growing down on the ground. It's a lot of them. We started these off from seeds. So basically all you do is just train the vine. You get it growing up on that net or whatever you're going to grow it on, and you train it. And this is one of the nets like you get on Amazon. What I found out about these is, if you look real close right there, they have like a drawstring on one end, and it looks like a pretty good idea, but I've had a couple of bigger melons, the string break, or what you see happens is that string, as it grows up and gets bigger, it starts cutting into the stem. So I had to go back behind that, cut those off, and then make these hammocks out of this netting that I already had. It's another one of the old ones. So I've learned this year not to use those anymore. This watermelon's almost ready. And the way you can tell is that little piece right there, it starts turning brown. Once it's all the way brown, a couple of days later, it'll be done, ready. Look at that one. That's a big one right there. And it's still blooming, but I'm not so sure that anything that comes out now will make it before the frost, since it's already the middle of August. And see that post right there? It got to be so much weight. Now you figure these watermelons get to be 25 pounds. So you get a whole lot of watermelons. If you had 100 watermelons, that's 2,500 pounds. And it started bending that post right there. So I had to drive a piece of rebar down in the ground and put a ratchet strap on it and ratchet it back up. So I'm not going to go through none of that next year. I'm not doing it. I'm going to build a nice sturdy trellis next year with coat panels. And I use all organic fertilizer. I don't use any pesticides or anything that can hurt the bees. As you can see, I'm growing. That's what it looks like. You can see kind of where it's caving in right there. And first of all, when I first started off, I had these stainless steel cables, zip tied. Another thing I just noticed today, is that a couple of places and areas in the patch, a lot of the leaves are starting to yellow down low. Some of them are dying. I don't know if that's because it's been in the mid-90s, hadn't been any rain. Everything's kind of dry. I don't know. See where it's pulling that post over? That's 2 feet in the ground. So that's what it looks like. My watermelon trellis. Just take another quick trip right on down the middle of it. Alright, today I'm going to harvest a watermelon. And if you notice that this watermelon and that watermelon right there are both about the same size, but the tendril on this watermelon is still green. It's just starting to turn brown on that top. And this one, the tendril is turned brown. So that's one way that you can always tell that your watermelon is going to be ripe. And another way is, if you look at the side of your watermelon, if it's not ripe, it'll be smooth all the way around. But if it's got little ridges on it, then that watermelon's ripe. And this one's got some nice deep ridges. I can feel them right in here. So I'm going to go ahead on now, and I'm going to harvest this watermelon. All right. Here we go. There it is, right there. Probably about a good 25-pound melon. And I'm going to go in here in a little bit and I'm going to cut this open and we'll see what it looks like. Alright, so here's another watermelon that I just harvested from out of the crop. And I'm going to go on it now and we're going to cut this one right here. There you go, look at that. Awesome. Perfect color.